All right, I've got another Jeremy Corbyn story for you guys. Last week I told you he was closing in on Theresa May and it put a huge dent in her lead. I'm going to tell you more about that in a second. But first, I'd like to remind you that about a year ago, I tweeted out saying I'm going to double down on my prediction from 3 days ago. Jeremy Corbyn will be the next prime minister of the United Kingdom. Doesn't matter when the elections are held. So I was, of course, referring to the next time there would be a public election where the voters would get the vote. And if you go back and find that tweet and you look at the replies, you'll see that about 70% of them say, don't know anything about UK politics. Jeremy Corbyn has no chance whatsoever. But it doesn't really matter. The video we put up from last week talking about how he's closing the lead, same exact tweets. Oh, no way, not Corbyn. And it's all over the press. I was just in the UK and the headlines are like, shock poll, fear that Corbyn is closing in. Why is that a fear? Gee, I wonder which side they're on. Anyway, here's one from the Sydney Morning Herald. Most, of course, that's from the UK. I'm sorry, from Australia, but they're reporting in on this. Most, such as the University of Kent's Matthew Goodwin, are completely dismissive. He will, quote, happily eat my new Brexit book if Labour poll 38%, let alone beat the Conservatives, which would require a much higher figure, he said on Monday. So they are, to this late date, unconvinced, don't care, even on Monday, saying, I'm gonna eat my book if it's the Brexit book. Remember how we were so sure that Brexit wouldn't happen? I wrote a book about that and now I'll eat it. Okay, all right, let's see what happens. So remember, Theresa May had a 24-point lead. And last week I reported to you that it went down to 13 points. And then right before we did the show, then another poll came out and it went down to 9 points. And how are we doing now? A couple of days later, in the beginning of this week, a new poll out, Corbyn versus May. 43% Conservative Party, that's Theresa May's party. Labour Party, 37%. I'll do the math for you. That's only 6 points. Here comes Corbyn. There's a snap election. There's almost no time to campaign. To close it from 24 points to 6 points in this window, that's crazy. Here comes Corbyn. Okay, now let's look at Theresa May's numbers. Is this campaign going well for her? I hear from the establishment, she's brilliant, really smashing, she's wonderful. Way better than Corbyn. We fear Corbyn might be closing in. Let's see if the British citizens agree. According to The Guardian, more than a third of the voters, 37%, say their opinion of the prime minister is more negative than at the start of the campaign, against 25% who say it is more positive. And part of the reason for that is Theresa May did the same exact move that Hillary Clinton did. Filled with hubris, she put out a manifesto saying, oh yeah, I'm gonna hit senior citizens, I'm gonna hit them pretty hard. We gotta get the money somewhere. Really, in the middle of an election, you're gonna put out a manifesto like that? Well, I appreciate her honesty, but that did not go over well. Meanwhile, Labour Party put out their manifesto, and it had things that would appeal to a lot of British citizens, and not just a few. And in fact, their slogan is for the many, not the few. And that polled really well. In fact, now we go to Corbyn. The opposite is true for Corbyn, with 39% saying they have a more positive view of Corbyn, compared with only 14% who now have a more negative view. And then there's more good news. Corbyn also leads by 13 points among voters under 50 and is tied with May among women. And again, the establishment said, oh no, Theresa May is gonna win among women, and so this is easy. And they keep telling us that things can't happen, and then all of a sudden, lo and behold, they happen. Look, the reason I predicted the Corbyn victory is, if for those of you saying you're not an expert on UK politics, I hear you, brothers and sisters, and I'm not here to argue about that. What I'm telling you is, and what I've said from day one, is that people are looking for populist candidates, whether they're on the right or the left, and they can't stand the establishment. That's why Brexit won, that's why Trump won, that's why Bernie Sanders closed a 60-point lead in a short period of time on Hillary Clinton. Her name recognition won the day at the end, but he was the better candidate. We told you, and that's what it turned out to be. Now Bernie Sanders, the most popular politician in all of America by a significant margin. left or right, as long as they're not establishment. So now more from Robert Kuttner at the American Prospect. If the election were held today, the governing Tory party would lose seats. They thought they were going to pick up seats. That's why they held a snap election. They thought they were so clever. Labor is in striking distance of winning a majority, and the momentum appears to be with Labor. Now, there was the bombings in Manchester, and again, the establishment media told us, oh, Corbyn handled very poorly. Of course, what happens is when there's a bombing here, you have to be more barbaric than your opponent and say, we should do random bombings in the Middle East and get more involved in the Middle East because that's such a great idea. Kuttner explains, Corbyn drew barbs from conservatives when he said that the British support for ill-considered Mideast wars had increased the risk of terrorist attack. But it turned out that most Britons agreed with Corbyn. And when I saw him say that, and I was in the UK at the time, I thought, that's smart, that'll work. Every newspaper at the time, no, terrible idea, what an idiot, what a schmuck, etc. I don't think they use the word schmuck in the UK. Anyway, so I want to give you two quick parts of that speech. The first part, people don't talk about enough. Here's was the first part of how he responded to the Manchester bomb.
We will reverse the cuts to our emergency services and police. Once again in Manchester, they proved to be the best of us. Austerity has to stop at the accident and emergency ward and at the police station door. We cannot be protected and cared for on the cheap.
See, this is part of a logical populist campaign. You say, hey, you want to be protected? Let's spend more on security. Doesn't that make sense? Police. I don't mean security bombing a country all the way across the world. I mean actual police here. Of course, that's popular. There was sustained applause for that line. Now to the controversial foreign policy statement. Here, watch.
We will also change what we do abroad. Many experts, including professionals in our intelligence and security services, have pointed out the connections between wars that we've been involved in or supported and fought in other countries, such as Libya, and terrorism here at home.
Now, they said that was controversial, and they said, how dare you say that? Are you blaming us? He went on to explain the rest of the speech. Of course, I'm not blaming us, and it doesn't justify killing innocent civilians, the kids that were killed, etc. there. But let's rethink our foreign policy. We keep going and punching them in the face, and then when they punch back, we get surprised. He's like, so I don't think it's a good idea that we keep doing interventionism. So, most important thing is not what my opinion is or his opinion is, but the opinion of the British citizens. So now you go to this poll, they ask them, who do you agree with? 65% of Britons said that wars the UK has supported or fought are responsible, at least in part, for terror attacks against the UK. Only 25% said the opposite and 10% they didn't know. That's a giant lead for Corbyn's position. Yet again, for the millionth time in a row, the establishment is wrong and they can't see straight, they're in their bubble, and they go, no, it couldn't be. Now, back to Kuttner. And he makes the same point that, as I told you, I've been making now for years when it comes to Sanders, Trump, Brexit, etc. The point is that a great deal of the mass disaffection, he explains, from politics and conventional politicians can go right or it can go left. Sanders or Trump, Le Pen or Mélenchon, Brexit or Corbyn. Exactly right. So who's going to decide this election? Well, the young are, because Labor has 2/3 of the 18 to 24-year-olds, and conservatives have 2/3 of the over 65s. So if more senior citizens show up, well, then Conservative Party will win, Theresa May will remain prime minister. If more young voters show up, then Corbyn can win and shock the world one more time. Here comes Corbyn. I know what you're thinking, Cenk, what do I get if I'm a Young Turks member? Well, I'm glad you asked. Not only do you get the whole 2-hour show on demand anytime you want, ad-free, but you get 6 podcasts on top. What are they? Join up, find out, they're amazing. You're gonna love these shows. TYTnetwork.com/join.